Hayley Atwell changed my life with a piece of advice she gave me earlier in my career, so I'm so excited to welcome her to Reign to share her wisdom with you. You'll probably know Hayley for playing Agent Carter in 6 Marvel films, and most recently starring alongside Tom Cruise in the Mission Impossible franchise. Now she's starring opposite Tom Hiddleston in the West End in Much Ado About Nothing, and talks to us about how the play raises some serious questions about cancel culture and gender double standards in our society today. Hayley also talks about learning to walk into rooms as your authentic self, how she wishes she was more compassionate to her younger self, and we talk about the lack of male allies for women in Hollywood and beyond. We also chat about her incredible cameo in Heartstopper as Nick's aunt, which made me cry and probably made so many of you cry too. And she shares the best piece of advice for learning to manage social anxiety that she learned from the Tom Cruise. Get ready to face those fears and overcome them. Hayley.
Hi.
Welcome to Reign.
Thank you for having me.
I'm literally so excited to have you here because believe it or not, when I first started this podcast, you were one of the people that I wanted to get onto this show. Oh. And there's a very specific reason for this that I'm going to share with the audience. And it's because, and now it's quite apt that you're on for this season because we are talking about self-love and our relationships with ourselves and others. And most importantly, our relationship with ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you actually changed my relationship with myself with a piece of advice you gave me when I met you. And you said to me, this was when you were doing the Christopher Robin tour. Mm-hmm. So this was like,
2017?
2017. So we're going back, babe, 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. You messaged me after that interview and you said, take you wherever you go and keep setting the tone that you want. And that literally changed my life.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It
literally changed my life because I was such a person who thought I had to be someone else in order to achieve things in life. I was really, really struggling with my self-confidence. And when you sent me that message, I just thought, oh my God, if I take me wherever I go, I'm going to get to where I want to go.
Yeah.
So it's so special to have you here. And just to say thank you for that because honestly.
I remember that interview. Like I said, I will never forget it because those press junkets are, it's like speed dating. You've got 2 minutes or 3 minutes to get a soundbite of the film out. But I felt that there was an instant sense of rapport with you that felt like this person knows how to encourage people to open up to you in a much deeper way than just a soundbite for selling something. And I felt there was a genuine interest in a personal connection, like who we are as human beings. And I've loved listening to your podcast since I was saying to you before we started that I've listened to about 5 of them now. And the consistency in them is that there is an underlying sense of kindness and an underlying sense of generosity. And for me, that's what I want to take into any space I'm walking into. And that is the thing that I would love more than anything to be on the receiving end of from particularly a work or professional situation. So that's why I'm here.
Oh my God. I mean,
8 years later.
We might as well stop now.
I mean, what else
done.
to say?
You changed my life. See ya. But it's so amazing because you just never know what kind of interactions you're going to have with people. And you never know what lasting message or life lesson you're going to find from someone. And that life lesson was all about authenticity and being you. Yeah. So I want to start by asking, when did you start really stepping into yourself and start walking into rooms as you 100%?
Well, brilliant question. I think it's a continuing journey and process. I think when I was younger as a kid and before the ego sets in around 7, children are naturally curious, creative, spontaneous, playful, if they have, received adequate care. Like that's the natural seeming to be how we are wired as human beings. And I felt very much like that as a kid. I felt very loved and very free to be myself. I grew up inner city London, so I had the influence of so much diversity and varied communities and families and people around. And so the sense that life was full of variety and that I belonged to it. And then I think the inevitability of teenage years kicks in, and puberty, and the sense of who am I going to settle into being? And who else am I going to continue to hopefully develop throughout my adult life? So I'm never going to be a finished project. And I did feel that in my 20s, a lot of the insecurities that most people face in their 20s was exacerbated by the fact that I was in the public eye somewhat, starting a career, and had been lucky enough to always, since leaving drama school, always work as an actor. And I did lose my sense of self a lot. And often when people say like, oh, well, fame changes you. I'm like, well, it actually changed a lot of people around me. So that was confusing to go, where do I stop and the other person begin in terms of that sense of changing sense of self and social status? And that can take time to settle into. And I would say it was probably not until my mid-30s that I started to have to consciously practice being myself. And that all that means to me is breathing calmly in a room and noting the times when I just want to jump in and mirror someone or agree with someone for the sake of it, or run away from a person or a thing that I'm intimidated by. And being myself is the ability to have a conscious relationship with your nervous system, with your intuition, regardless of the environment that you find yourself in. And I'm happy to report that if you've done the work, it can be a default position. I would say now, at 42, it's a default position for me to be. It's less conscious effort to do that. I've had to really consciously work at it. And when you do, eventually you turn around and you go, oh, this is kind of a new normal. Anytime when you step off that and go, I feel a bit weird, it's often because you've got to do a bit of cleaning up there, a little bit of work to do there.
It's about becoming your own best ally, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah.
And your own cheerleader.
Yeah.
To be like, you've got this just as you are. And instead of trying to be like someone else, because that also must be so difficult in an industry which is so about other people's opinions. Like you can go to an audition and someone's like, you're not quite right for this role because of X, Y, and Z. You then could literally be at a photo shoot and then you're like, oh, I'm not fitting into the vibe of what they want me to be like. Like there's always so many opinions and so many voices.
Yeah.
So it must have been difficult to find yourself and listen to your own voice in a world where there is so many other voices.
Yeah, that's really about sort of developing the art of communication. So there is a way of sharing, that's not exactly the same idea I had, or I don't feel particularly comfortable. And you can communicate it in a way where the intention lands of let's find the thing together where both of us thrive. And your work as a makeup artist, stylist, director, producer, writer is seen and respected just as much as my interpretation of those words are as an actor. And so that, again, comes with practice and making mistakes and going, what did I do? What did I say? Oh, did I mean that? That's living in the discomfort from a place of also curiosity. Then over time, you can kind of trust yourself a little bit more that you know how to have your back. But I also think that the actual craft of being an actor, which I nerd out about. I'm really happy to talk about stage work forever. And I'm sure it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I love it. Is because when I was a kid, I felt like I didn't have the words a lot of the time. I felt I had a lot of feelings and a lot of I felt very alive in the world, but I didn't always know what to say, what to ask, how to express it. I felt sort of, everything was sort of on the verge of, on my lips, but I didn't really know how to communicate it. And when I'd go to the theatre, I would see particularly the people that I would consider the greats. We have Judi Dench, Fiona Shaw, Juliet Stevenson, Jenny Jules, and many, many other voices. They would articulate something and I would feel like you've named that thing that I feel, or you've named and described an idea that I share. And I thought there's something very powerful as an actor in absorbing the language of great minds, ingesting it, and also then being able to own it and then share it and express it as an idea to an audience. And it had remedied the feeling that I had of when I was younger of I'm stupid, I have nothing to say, the loudest person in the room gets the attention. It helped sort of wake up my intellect, I think. So the work itself for me is the greatest is the greatest relationship that I have and the greatest journey that I'm on. The ability to just continue to study communication and to study language.
When are you proudest of finding your voice on that journey?
I think it's every time I've been able to stand up for myself with grace. I'm trying to think about specific moments. There was a moment fairly recently that, and I was sort of bringing it up because it's most current in my memory, but I was doing a cameo in Doctor Strange, and I was like, okay, as Captain Carter, it was like, blink and you miss me. And I really sort of took umbrage on the fact that she has that brilliant line, I could do this all day. Then she's frisbeed to death with her own shield. And I'm like, she's so undermined.
But she's got so much to do in that one bit.
Busy, yes. And it just gets pulled out from her. And it's it's a funny moment. And I remember looking at this is, and you never want to step on anyone's toes and really respect everyone's skill set. But I do remember sort of looking at the frame, and I'd also, bearing in mind, I'd come off 3 years into what has now been 5 years of working on Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie, who are so eager for everyone to learn as much as they can about every aspect of filmmaking. So you go and watch the monitor, you study the lighting, you study what that particular composition of a frame does for the audience and what it communicates. So they really encourage you to demystify the process and educate yourself. So when I got onto the Doctor Strange set, I was sat there with my my suit on and my jetpack, and I had my shield. And
as you do on the casual Tuesday.
As you do on a casual eating cheese and just hanging out. And I remember looking at the frame and going, the lighting's quite harsh. It's giving. And I remember going up to a very lovely person who was in a very high position there, and I, of course, won't name and shame, but I was like, do you think maybe can I offer you a possibility that I actually come in from that side and suggest if I do that line there? And I just came up with an offering technically, which I love doing because a lot of directors will go, oh, great, try something.
Yeah.
In this particular instance, he went, oh, sure, Hayley, I'll just tell our Oscar-winning editor that you have some choices you'd like to make. And don't you worry about that. I'll make sure he gets a memo. And I went, well, considering he's an Oscar-winning editor, he will know a good idea when he sees one. So I'm sure he will enjoy listening to what I have to say to make the scene better. And the director kind of went, ha, ha, ha. Oh, I'm just kidding with you. I'm just bullying you. Don't worry. And I went, you can't bully me. I've got a jetpack on. I walked off.
The most iconic line ever. You can't bully me. I've got a jetpack on, babe.
We both chuckled. And I thought, from someone, British people don't tend to like confrontation. Americans, I've noticed, are much better at it.
Yeah.
Because they can do it quite enthusiastically.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know where I am. This is my land. This is my space. There's enough space here for me to be big physically and vocally. And in Britain, we're kind of like, I'm terribly sorry,
but I've got this one piece of feedback.
I just want it. And so being able to just find a way of going, I'm going to be a little bit bigger here. I'm going to say, I've got an idea. I think it's better than the one you've come up with, respectfully. If you would like it, shall we give it a go?
Yeah.
And if they're going to come back with a little kind of know your place, I'll be like, I do know my place. I've got some things to say.
And it was better.
And it was better. And it worked. It was better. So that's kind of an example, I think. Yeah. But any time you can find a way, I think, of standing up for yourself or someone else who needs that kind of advocacy, when you can do it with a sense of humor and a sense of grace, so that the person that you're communicating to knows that it's the intention to make something better, then I think people do tend to be receptive to it.
And you get so much further that way.
Yeah.
Right? So you just got to dress up a little bit.
Just dress it up.
Dress up a little bit.
With some honey.
Yeah, just some nice honey or some sprinkles or floral decorations, whatever it's got to be.
Whatever you need to do to disguise the massive turd underneath there. Yeah. Whatever you want to just spice things up with. Yeah.
But it's about learning to take up space, isn't it? And that is a hard thing to do, especially in an industry that doesn't want to necessarily give you that much space.
So for me, I felt that all through my 20s, and that I felt like I knew who I was in my personal life, but that I didn't know who I was in terms of a public persona on camera or in red carpet situations or the kind of networking world of it. And so I shied away from a lot of it, and I sort of kind of rejected a lot of it. And I would see colleagues of mine who embraced it and seemed to be so front-footed and finding themselves kind of walking into their own opportunities more because they had just more confidence than I did. And then over time, just kind of finding my own level of comfort, like my own balance of going, you know what, I do feel more back-footed today, and that's all I've got to work with today, and that's okay. And not try and force myself. There's I have a brilliant teacher from drama school called Patsy Rodenberg, and she wrote a book about different circles of concentration. First circle is people who are naturally inclined to be sort of energetically a little bit further back in themselves, vocally maybe a little quieter. They'd be more introverted, I suppose. And then the opposite is the third circle people. So they'll be the loudest person in the party, and they tend to talk at people, and they kind of are quite forward in their physicality. And the second circle people are people who are very present. So they can go into first and go into third as kind of conscious choices to know how to play the room or take in what that room needs. And also what was interesting in studying that with her is that first circle, it's not to group them as a people, but it's a particular kind of energy. We all have these circles within us when we feel introverted, when we feel extroverted, when we feel a combination of the two. And there is a power in all of them. So first circle energy also, if you notice people who kind of like very quiet, you tend to kind of have to kind of lean in a little bit more. Yeah, so it can actually also command the room in a different kind of way, because you go, what is she? And it can also be enigmatic. So they go, wow, they're so mysterious, because they are seemingly withholding a little bit. There's no good or bad, no judgment or right and wrong in these different kind of ways of being. It's just character observations. And the same thing with third circle people. And the character of Beatrice in Much Ado often is quite a third circle in the beginning of the play, where the bigness of them, of their persona or their personality or their energy, can be a great defense mechanism for hiding their own vulnerability or hiding the fact that I'm really intimidated by one-on-one conversations, but I can talk at a whole room to avoid the eye contact or the intimacy. Yeah. And I find that as a study really useful in terms of understanding human behavior and my own, and how sometimes I can kind of go from one to the other in one conversation. And I find it's great, being able to label these things makes it easier for me to kind of understand more of the kind of subconscious things at play.
Now you're at this point in your life where you've got this sense of control over yourself and you know who you are. Is there a time you wish you were more compassionate with yourself?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh. I was so hard on myself. I think that I felt like I had to be in order to persevere and overcome obstacles that I felt like. And also, when you're younger and you kind of hear like, well, only 1% of the acting population is ever in work at one time, like 99% of people, whatever the astronomical statistics are out of work. And there'd be a lot of fear mongering when I was younger. I didn't know anyone that was in the industry as a kid. Didn't have any money growing up. I couldn't get like a break in any way other than studying the craft at drama school and being really good at what I did and pursue it seriously as a vocation. And that was a great gift because nothing came easily, but it also meant that I had to develop the determination. I had to develop the drive. And I think what happened was I also developed this rigidity in myself of going, if failure was not an option for me. And it meant that, I would have to give myself kind of very strong pep talks coming out of an audition. Was there anything I could have done better, done differently? And I would analyze myself quite a lot. And I look back at that time, it was particularly in my 20s, and I feel kind of, I want to go back to that girl and give her a big hug and say, you can wear this all a little bit more lightly. And that talent will out eventually, and not everything is for you, nor should it be. And that hopefully will give you a much fairer perspective on your life because you won't be given everything. And I look at her now and I think you thought in order to be good enough, you had to be a perfectionist. But now I look back and I go, I was good enough in spite of being a perfectionist. So that didn't really help me. That just meant that I robbed myself of the joy of when something did go right or well for me. So there's definitely lingering sadness there about that. You know, I could have definitely been kinder.
Another reason I absolutely love Pandora is their commitment to sustainability. They're not just in the game, they're leading it. As of September 2024, every Pandora piece is crafted using 100% recycled silver and gold, and every bit of their operations runs on 100% renewable electricity. And it gets even better. Pandora is on track to hit net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. They've managed to cut CO2 emissions by 17% while boosting revenue by 45%, showing you can grow a business without compromising the planet. With these innovative moves, Pandora doesn't just offer beautifully crafted jewelry, it also shows genuine care for our world's future. So why not celebrate the love in your life? Treat someone special or even treat yourself at pandora.net and be the love you need. Well, I think if that 20-year-old you was sat in the theatre the other day when I went to go see Much Ado About Nothing, I think they would be so proud of you. And I think you should be so proud of the you. And imagine her sitting there when you're doing that, because you're exceptional in this theatre show. It is incredible. Like, if anyone's listening to this and a bit like, Shakespeare, not for me, babes. It is so for you. It's like Shakespeare P goes to GAY on Old Compton Street, isn't it? Basically,
yeah.
Shakespeare P goes to the club.
Goes to
the club.
And wants only 90s house music.
Yeah, which is what we all want.
Then we will serve.
Yeah, well, I never ever thought I'd be in a Shakespeare production set to the tunes of Kelly Rowland and David Guetta's When Love Takes Over.
Neither did I.
One of my favourite songs.
Oh my, we had no idea either until we got to rehearsals. I worked with Jamie Lloyd twice, and Tom Hiddleston had as well. And we turned up on day one wanting to work with him again and with each other because we've known each other 20 years. And Jamie went, okay, so this is the set. The model box came, pink confetti, massive heart. Okay, this is the music. We're trying to work out if we can get the rights to all of this, but it's this world. Okay. And day one of rehearsals, the choreographer Fabian said, okay, I just want you to get into circle. And we thought it would like be icebreaking kind of exercises.
You're like, I've got this.
Building.
Yeah, trust building. Who wants to jump into my arms? I'm here.
It's a safe space. No one's going to see this. And they're like, okay, so you're 3 hours into the wedding reception of your best mate. Right, the music's shifted into the evening now. What moves are you going to bring us? And so and they're like, don't think about it, just do it. So we went into the circle. We just, having a great time.
What was your go-to move?
Mine was always, it was this.
Here we go.
It was like a real sneery.
Wow.
It was just like a little kind of, this kind of attitude, which is for me was Ladbroke Grove in the 90s. I was always just kind of doing this, but it's often a facial expression more than anything else going on.
It's definitely giving 3 hours into the wedding reception that.
Yeah.
Couple of champagnes and the rest.
What is these guns here? And then Tom's was obviously kind of his dancing, swimming move, which he did on Graham Norton. And the other people like doing this sort of kind of stuff. And then what we didn't really realise was that everything that we were doing, we were essentially offering up to the choreographer to then put into the actual production. And there was one point in rehearsals where I realised, anything that we do in this rehearsal space could be used against us on that stage. And I just thought, you know what? There's one way to get over my own cringe, and that's just to keep going through it until hopefully it comes out the other side into something that really works. And we didn't know until that first preview when the curtain goes up and you're filling this 2,000-seater auditorium of the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, this massive pink heart dancing to Groove Is in the Heart, that you go, it's landing, it works. Oh my God, it works. And I have a theory as to why so many people who don't like Shakespeare or theatre or know much about it or have had experiences where they feel like it's not for them, I think if they don't feel like it's for them is because they've seen mostly bad productions. And I think Shakespeare's really hard for our modern day audience frequency to tune into, for it to be as powerful as it was back then. He was writing not for academics and intellectuals and posh people. He was writing for the people in a language that, all the references they would have gotten culturally at that time. The music he talks about in the play would have been popular music at that time. So we've just translated it to what it is today. And my feeling is, when Shakespeare's done right by the right people, you can feel it. And it's done often quite badly by people who make it like, oh, I'm doing Shakespeare.
It's very serious.
It's very posh. It only exists from the neck up. And if I sound very clever, then I don't have to admit that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And that means if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you realise that I must be cleverer than you. And there could be such like a subtext of that.
That is so true.
Right? Then if you go and see Andrew Scott doing Hamlet, if you see Ben Whishaw doing it, you're like, I don't know what you're saying, but I know what you're saying.
I'm connecting with it in a new way.
I feel it, and I know that's a gag, and it's funny, and and it's tickling me. Although I don't really understand
why it's tickling me.
Why it's tickling me? I don't know what that word means, but I'm tickled.
Great.
Or they're moved, or there was also, I had a friend come in the other day, and he's rapidly losing his hearing, and he struggles with Shakespeare regardless. And he just said, but visually, I'm so connected to what you're doing, because what Shakespeare asks of me as an actor is it's so hard, because the thoughts turn really quickly and the emotions can turn really quickly. And you have to meet it really emotionally, mentally, physically, full on. Otherwise it falls, and it's above, and it's too quick for you, it's too big for you. And then you try and reduce it to kind of mumbling. You have to learn how to rigorously interpret the text into your own body. And that was my kind of job. If I can make it accessible to him who can't hear it very well, I can also make it accessible to people who can hear it, but also wouldn't necessarily be interested in it as a language. And I find that, as an absolute nerd, thrilling to be able to achieve as an actor.
Well, it's so relevant today.
Yeah.
The subtext in it is so relevant. And there's an amazing part of the show where Beatrice, who you play, and she's a very early feminist in the context of Shakespeare, English literature, full stop. There's a really amazing passage where she talks about gender double standards. Could you share a little bit of that with us, and what it means to you as a woman in 2025 to be delivering those lines on stage? Absolutely.
So for context, there is a scene where her dear cousin, Hero, who's younger than her, who is about to get married, she is publicly shamed and accused of, the night before her wedding, being seen with another man. And her fiancé publicly shames her in the wedding and exposes this. Now, this is actually a lie that's been set up by the villain of the play. And so what happens in the scene is you have the most powerful man in the room says, last night you were seen with a ruffian at your bedroom window doing the naughty, and you're a whore, you are just absolute disgrace, and I'm not going to marry you. And all the men immediately go, you're disgusting, and absolutely shame her. And she faints. She's so shocked by this, she faints. And Beatrice, who in that most of that scene remains very quiet, she is with Hero, her cousin, dumbfounded at what she's hearing and really struck by the violence of the act of the public shaming. And when I read it, I felt, it's a dramatic idea that at the altar is the time your fiancé's decided to kind of supposedly out you on what is actually then later on a lie. But I looked at and I thought about modern day public shaming of women in the public eye, and how women can be publicly shamed to death, even in this country. And I mean that in the sense of it can have such an acute effect on their sense of self and their mental health that they can go from being, in the world to actually just not wanting to live anymore. And, I've never mentioned this before, but I thought for some reason, I felt really affected reading this scene, thinking of someone like Caroline Flack. And the sort of vilification of people in the public eye, and the public, the sensationalism, or this sort of this mob mentality of destroying someone and deciding, and cancel culture is also part of that. And then I also thought about even in our own social circles, if we are shamed, if there is a lie that is spread about us at school, how quickly your position in that school, in that class, in that social group can just be overnight just totally destroyed. And I felt that that's a very real thing. It's a very relevant thing to today. And so, you know, I cry every night when I hear those words. And I think also because, you know, it's a woman who my character is very close to, but she's also younger than me. And I think about our young selves and the vulnerability of young people still needing validation of who they are in the world from their peers. It's such an important thing, and to have that stripped away. So it always upsets me. But then the scene afterwards is so satisfying to play, because Benedict asks her, you know, is there anything that I can do? And essentially what she says is, if I was a man, I would be able to advocate for her. And by man, I am interpreting that as, if I was in a position of power, I would be able to advocate her because people would listen to me. So I think it's definitely gendered in this regard. I think for the sake of the actual argument, it's bigger than gender, because it's really about power. So whoever is the most powerful person in the room, who determines who gets listened to and who gets believed, that is really bigger, scarily, than the truth of if that thing is actually true or if it's a lie. So you can call this person the man, the patriarchy, you can call it the mob mentality, you can call it the bully in the room that seems to have a sway over the group. And she talks about, if I had the power, you know, I would eat his heart in the marketplace. I would destroy this person who has taken away my cousin's dignity and the truth of who she is. And it's a wonderful feeling to play every night, because I find it very cathartic. I think about all the stories that I read, or experiences where friends of mine were not believed or were publicly shamed, even in the playground, and the sense of injustice that brought out in me. And that she gets to say it every night. And it's in the saying of that she's also challenging Benedict's honor, because up until that point, Benedict is someone who's like a modern day fuckboy, I'm going to say.
Yeah, we can use that language. Yeah, stunning.
You know, full of bravado, loves himself, says, all women love me, so I'm not going to hurt them by loving any of them back.
Yeah.
That's, you know, said, aren't I wonderful?
That's prime fuckboy territory.
So, I mean, we've all been there.
We've been there multiple times, babes. We've learned our lessons.
We've learned our lessons. Sometimes
us.
it looked a lot of repeating of the mistake, but we learned it. But yeah, hopefully we did.
God loves a trier.
God loves a trier.
Yeah.
God loves a trier.
And we got there in the end.
Shakespeare loves a trier as well.
Exactly.
So we have Benedict, and when she is confronting him with all this stuff, with all this really important sort of sense of justice about the truth and about advocating for the thing that's right, she asks him, she's like, where is your honor? Where is your integrity? Where is your character? And there's something that I found once the play is opened, which you may remember in it, which is that Tom loves to talk to the audience, because it's in the lines. Benedict speaks to the audience much more than Beatrice does. And early on, you know, in the play, he's looking at the women, he's talking to the women, he's like, hey, how you doing? I know I'm Tom Hiddleston, aka Loki. I think I'm great.
Know what you're dealing with. I'm also going to get my top off in a minute.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And that's all Benedict. And Beatrice is like, oh my God, he's just, oh my God. And has clearly been hurt by him in the past. So I found a way of going, okay, in that scene, she says, manhood is melted into curtsies, valor into compliment. And what I do now is I go, manhood, she's going, I wish, you know, you have the power and you're not helping me. Your manhood has just been melted into curtsies. And I impersonate him going down on one leg as he does in the play. And then on valor has turned into compliment, I go to the audience and I go, hi. I impersonate his bravado. And the audience love it because it's Hayley poking fun of Tom, which is really Beatrice poking fun of Benedict in a way that goes, a man or the powerful person in the room can now effectively, if they are big enough, have enough self-confidence and conviction, are willing to double down on their lie, they still hold all the power in the room. And but where is integrity? Where is honor? Where is dignity? Where is righteousness? Where is justice? And that's what she's calling for him, in that scene, for him to show up and become in order for them to be together.
And where is allyship? That's what it's asking as well.
Where's allyship?
And I think that's something that I talk about all the time on this podcast. A couple of women, female actors come on and we talk about the need for more male allies in the entertainment industry. Because actually, where are they? Do you feel like we could benefit with more male allies in the entertainment industry?
You know, to be very candid about it, I have some really amazing men in my life. I wish this didn't come across as like just a horrible sort of mean thing to say, but I don't see much of it compared to, I see more allyship really with regards to the queer community. That's just my personal experience. There does seem to be straight men and women who, for me, I can see are more vocal in their genuine interest and curiosity about how do I learn more about the queer community? How do I help and encourage them to feel seen, to be fully who they want to be? And I love that. I think that's because it's also a very healthy conversation to have. You know, I feel very comfortable in asking things I don't understand or think I might need to be educated on. And that for me is a gift of intimacy that I have with members of the queer community that I'm close to, is that they can feel comfortable enough to go, yeah, Hayley, that's not my experience, and I want to tell you some things. I would love to see a little bit more front-footed curiosity from the men. But ultimately it comes back to, I don't see enough of it in the industry. I don't feel enough of my own support as a woman in the industry. But that doesn't mean that it excuses me from not being that for other people. I can't control other people. I can't demand more support or generosity from them. But I could be more generous. That's within my control. I hope that makes kind of sense.
That makes complete sense. Because even if it's not there, it's not going to stop you advocating for other people.
Yeah.
Even
and
if
in
you
doing
feel like
so,
you're not receiving it.
Yeah. And in doing so, I get the byproduct, the feeling of what it is like to be an ally and to advocate for other people. And I am kind of, in a way, therefore, giving in return a gift of intimacy with that person to myself. And so instead of me sort of going like, you are not generous enough to me, I'm always doing it, you never do this. Going, well, I can be that. And I can, and when I see generosity happening and people coming out of their own comfort zone into wanting to learn about my own experience or other people's experience that's not their own lived experience, it really is noted. And there's, I think Tom Cruise is that. He actively wants people to thrive, so he is very curious about who they are, what makes them feel seen and heard on their terms, and he will learn their language to meet them there. And I thought, well, if this man with so much power in the world can still be that kind and humble and generous and genuinely want to know how to connect with someone who is very different from him, that comes into his radar or in his working world, then there's absolutely no excuse for anyone else not to also be curious or cultivate that sense of curiosity or generosity.
That's so true. And I mean, he must be the ultimate hype boy, right? Tom Cruise.
Oh my God. He's like a positive hairdryer. Because you're on the receiving end of his positivity and you feel like you've got this hairdryer. You're like, oh, wow, that's wow, oh my, wow. In the best possible way, and he'll often he'll be like, Hayley, people don't give people feedback enough. He even knows it, and they don't. And maybe it's a British thing. Like, we don't give people feedback that much. And he's like, so I'm going to give you some. And he's really specific about what the person he's working with does offer and does do. and we'll let you know. And I feel, I felt that from the beginning of our interview of saying, when I first met you, you have this natural ability for people wanting to open up to you, because the foundation of the vibe you give out is one of kindness and generosity and genuine interest. So, that means that people do want to connect with you. And for you to know that, I really want you to know that, because I'm sure you know that about yourself, but it's also nice to hear it when it lands as it's intended for the person that you're actually interviewing.
Oh my God. I mean, that's the first time I've ever been compared to Tom Cruise. So that's stunning.
Oh my God.
I love that.
That's just the beginning of the comparison, the similarity.
But I mean, there's so many. So many. Just as hench, and and aging just as well. What's the best pep talk he's given you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. One thing that I really like is, so social anxiety tends to be something that people talk about a lot at the moment, right? It seems to be quite a buzzword of conversation, and how a lot of people do have social anxiety at some point.
Everyone does.
Everyone does. And it can often be a new environment or environment of a particular kind of group of people or work situation or like friend situation. It can be about large groups of people or more intimate groups of people. It manifests in different ways. I don't think there's actually like I only feel anxious on a Tuesday afternoon in this particular environment. Like, it's a fluid that we feel anxious. But the pep talk he gave me helps that, which is that if you walk into a room and you feel the anxiety's coming, it makes me want to retreat into myself, and I start to overthink, and I start to go, do I look weird? Do I seem awkward? I'm not speaking. I'm just I'm muffling my words, or I need something to do to numb me from this. We go into ourselves, and he said, try doing the opposite. Try look out and look around the room and go, where is it? Where is the thing that I have attached onto my insecurity? Is it that person over there that reminds me of my school bully? Is it that person over there that didn't give me a job once? That person over there that I think was mean to me once? Is it, where does it live outside of me? And where do I feel like the source of it might be coming from? And if I look at it for long enough, the anxiety then can have a name. It can have a label. It can also be more contained as instead of a free floating one where I'm just in a total struggle internally with my own anxiety. And I try and do that now more, of going, if I'm scared of something, if I keep looking at it for long enough, it tends to sort of not be the monster under the bed anymore.
It's so true.
And what will happen is I'll go, oh, Hayley, you're really jealous. I'm like, I'm really lonely, or I'm really intimidated by the talent or the confidence of that person. And as soon as I can actually name what it actually is, the general sense of free-floating anxiety goes, and then I actually have an opportunity to do something about it. Like, if I maybe go up to that person and go, hi, or if I go up to that person and go, I'm really jealous of how amazing you are.
Yeah, just say it. It
tends to just dissipate. Being able to call it, to name the demon out loud and leave it on the floor, means that I'm not then, it's not living in me, and it means I'm out of control and I'm struggling with it. So he's just like, if you're scared of something, keep looking at it. Just try not to close your eyes or turn away. Just keep looking at it. And it will often give you information about what to do to overcome it.
Well, that also helps when you're filming Mission Impossible and you're dangling out of a train.
And say, sure, yeah.
You're in a tank, unsubmerged in the water for hours on end. Just look at it and just go through it, babe.
Yeah, exactly. Keep going through it. You'll eventually come out the other side.
The only way out is through.
The only way out is through.
It's so true. One thing we do need to talk about before you leave us today is Heartstopper. Babe, that cameo, that speech you gave Kit Connor's Nick on the beach was so powerful. How incredible was it to be part of that show and for everything it stands for, and to especially do that scene?
Okay, well, I have one thing to say about it, and then I'm going to put it back to you, because I feel like this show would have been for your younger self.
Oh, 100%. Okay? Yeah.
When I started watching it, when I was young, the only representation I saw of the queer community was in things like the brilliant Queer as Folk,
Yeah.
right? But it was for an older audience. It was heavily into the promiscuity, the subversive underground scene, which is so important and has its place in so many ways other than just the sex of it, right? It's a very kind of, what it says about the subculture is really, really important, and of a place of people found their way to be and express themselves. However, what was different for me in Heartstopper watching it was going, this is young people. One episode might be about like, is he going to text back or not? And it normalized queer relationships away from just sex, which we've talked about as a kind of fetishizing of a community. And the wholesomeness in it, I found incredibly touching and moving. So that's why I wanted to be involved in it. So, but my question to you is, what is it meant for you? And from seeing something like that?
Oh my God. I always think it would have helped younger me so much.
Yeah.
And there was something we were talking about before we even came on this, and it was about when Jessica Gunning came out on the podcast. And we were talking about where she said she had to separate it from being a sexual thing and being like a this is who I am thing.
Yeah.
And I think what you were saying about Heartstopper is so true, because yes, there is elements of, you know, they start to get freaky with it in the third season, shall we say. But it's not all about that.
Yeah.
And I felt like when I was coming out and struggling myself, I felt like I was coming out and basically saying to people, well, I want to have sex with men. But actually, it wasn't about that. It wasn't just about the sex of it. It was about who I am and how I identify. And I don't think those two things they're not like mutually exclusive, and they're all part of the same package. But I feel like the stigma comes from it being about that you want to have sex and it's going to be with this type of person and blah, 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 blah. As a straight person, you don't have to come out and be like, oh, I want to have sex with this kind of person. And I think that's where the stigma comes from. So actually to watch a show where it wasn't even about that, it was just about who they were and getting to their journey in their own sweet time would have been everything, because I didn't have anything like that. When I was growing up, the only queer people I could think of were like Dale Winton, and God love Dale, like rest in peace. That tan was sensational. Supermarket Sweep. I was
get me a trolley.
I was get me a trolley. I'm raring to go. Like Dale, this is sensational TV. But that was the only queer representation I could think of, and to have that show, it would help me so much. But that's what's so incredible about theatre, TV, film. Yeah. It can hit you at a certain point, and it can be healing for the way you are right now, or it could be healing for the person you were when you were 13, 14, 12, whenever that might have been. Yeah. And I think that's why the show was so special. And when you literally had that chat with Kit on the nighttime scene on the beach, it was like, I felt like younger me could have needed that pep talk so much. Yeah. And knowing how good you are at a pep talk, I was like, God, I wish I had Hayley Atwell when I was 14 years old, just really struggling with myself.
So, well, you have me now.
I have you now, which is perfect.
If like daily affirmations, I can send you them.
Maybe you should start an app. You're quite busy.
I'm quite busy.
You're quite busy, babe.
I once did. There was an article that written about me, and I thought we had a lovely time. And then the journalist wrote Hayley Atwell comes across like a self-help book. ... A long one. And I was like, well,
the audacity.
I was like, that can get in the bin. I'm sorry. I am sorry if my natural desire, the way that I want to communicate in the world, is about lifting ourselves up and each other, because my God, there's enough doing the opposite of that. Again, it's what I love about Much Ado About Nothing. It is really an act of radical optimism where we go, you are welcome to come here and have a good time. And that it doesn't cost anything. Well, it does, tickets are really expensive. But you can put the music on and dance around your room and still feel free in yourself and in your body by the sheer willingness to feel joy. And, but to go back to that scene in Heartstopper, what I loved about the lines that she had, where she was also going, love is also about understanding when you can't help that person.
Oh, yeah.
And you cannot save them, and it's not your emotional labor to do. And that's regardless of age. That's to do with understanding that person is on their own journey, and you can be there to support them, but not to be their therapist or to be their doctor or to be the person that tells them what to do to fix it, but just to gently listen and to be their companion, to sit beside them through what they're going through. And I think that's a beautiful idea. You know, we can't fix anyone, but we can sit with them while they are hopefully finding their way to fix themselves.
And whilst they're working on their relationship with themselves.
Yeah.
To take it full circle back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're doing this for younger you when you were in your 20s and you were struggling with yourself? What you're doing with your career now? Do you feel like you're doing it for that younger you?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel now like I love my work. I love it. I get to do it. And my respect for it, I take it seriously, but not myself within it. It's a privilege to be able to work in the arts for me. And I really have so much more to do and to learn and to develop. And there's so many genres and filmmakers I haven't yet been able to have the opportunity to work with. And I want to know how and why I haven't and where I can go next. But fundamentally, art continues to heal me as a person and enlighten me and keep my heart open in this cynical, bitter old world. It keeps me open. And that's what I want the work that I do to fundamentally offer an audience to. So it heals my younger self. It sets the path for hopefully other people not to have been as hard on themselves as I was. It's a small, in my corner of the world, a small contribution that I feel like I can make that means I'm not living just for myself, but for other people. And long may it continue.
Oh my God, long may it continue. I mean, you got a lot of movies coming out on the horizon, babe. So
One or two. Couple of franchises.
just some big franchises. You know, she's booked, she's busy, and she's very blessed. But before you leave us today, we always end on one final question.
Yes.
And that is, in the reign of your life, what's the one rule you'll always live by?
It's a great question. It is the rule my grandmother set out for me, and it's her birthday today.
Oh my God, happy birthday, Gma.
Yeah. My grandma Noreen, she said she said to me when I was young, and I always remember it, and it was a very funny kind of quote. She said, blessed are we who can laugh at ourselves, for we shall never cease to be amused. I think if we can cultivate a sense of humor about who we are in the world, then it makes life a little bit easier.
Sometimes you just got to laugh at yourself,
You just got to laugh at yourself. Then you've always you're going to have a nice time.
Yeah. You're always having a stunning time. We're living in permanent joy.
Permanent joy. That's it. As an act of defiance. Permanent joy.
Well,
only happiness.
that's the biggest act of defiance right now, isn't it? Living in joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm only programmed for joy, not seeing anything else. Sorry, guys.
Not to contribute to what's already going out there. Yeah. Just do what you can to make your day pleasant for other people.
Yeah. Well, you are amazing, and it's been the best having you here.
Thank you.
Thanks for changing my life.
Oh my God!
And helping me on my own journey with myself.
I've loved it. I love talking with you. I'm happy.
We could do this for like another 4 hours, but
happily.
Someone's got to get to the theatre.
I do. I've got a show.
You've got a show to put on, guys.